So, apparently there is a local community of worshippers of the handsome frog-shaped French dingus known as the Twingo, and they're having a meeting. I have been corrupted by that same curse, and I have successfully managed to turn some of my friends and apparently some of my viewers to the cause. While that pleases the Almighty One, I would also like to present an adequate automobile at the upcoming meeting to further demonstrate my allegiance. You see, I have been working on my particular specimen known as the Blue, bit by bit for the past 2 years, and I have come closer and closer to acceptability. But now there's a deadline and it's time to finally finish the car, at least to a certain level. And then we're also gonna do some tasteful modifications to improve the ever-important fitment. But first, let's do a little recap. As you remember, last year I got him registered and I took him on a road trip with the Red. Since then he's been my daily driver and he got me through the winter. Last fall I also got some nice wheels for him, a set of BBS Bugattis which were originally on a special Twingo Lecoq, which I thought would be a cool little Easter egg. So it sounds like he's been a pretty good boy, right? No. Actually, I wouldn't praise him just yet, because he definitely had some moments. He never left me stranded by the side of the road, but he did leave me stranded at home a couple times. Once the throttle body started acting up, so he wouldn't go out of safe mode. Another time the crank position sensor died and he just wouldn't start. Then another time the starter cable got loosened up. Also, at one point in time, I seem to have lost my sunroof privileges. I wasn't super thrilled about all of that, but I guess let's just be content that he's working now. Now, back to the build or restoration or whatever. Last time, if you remember, I painted the doors and the hood, which ended up not that bad for my first attempt. But the bumpers needed to be painted as well. Both of them were scratched up and had paint peeling, and the front one even had some matte black paint sprayed on the black plastic. It would take too much time to scrub that off with a paint thinner, so instead I just got another bumper, this one without fog lights, because I wanted to get rid of them as they weren't originally on the car. The rear one could still be reused though.
There's a little nest in here. I wonder how much XP I get from this. I never learn, huh? I never learn.
No, apparently I don't. But I actually wanted to get a broken bumper because I wanted to try welding plastic. Plus, it was a good deal, so you know I couldn't resist. I borrowed the plastic stapling gun from a friend. I always thought that it was so cool and wanted to try it out. But it just didn't work that well for me. It didn't hold the plastic in place and the prongs of the clips were almost impossible to break off. So maybe it was just the cheap clips. In the end, I ended up just welding it with a soldering iron. I also wanted to make sure the filler would make its way into the crack, so I dremeled it open a little bit. But because the plastic filler isn't made to fill such big holes, that didn't end up working. So I just welded the upper part as well, sanded the high spots and filled in the low spots with filler. And I got some proper name brand filler this time, as well as mixing sheets and new spatulas, and that made it so much better to work with. I filled in a bunch of rock chips, but I also left some thinking, why bother, surely they're going to be filled in by the spray filler.
It's not bad.
And of course the rock chips weren't filled in. But I wasn't going to go super perfect this time, so I left them as they were and let this be a learning experience. Then I moved on to sanding. And speaking of sanding, I ended up using the DA sander quite a bit more.
So much PPE, you're basically assembling the whole Exodia.
But when sanding spray filler with the higher grits, the pads wore out so quickly that I had to just finish it off by wet sanding by hand. Then it was time to prep for paint. I cleaned up the booth to the best of my abilities and masked the top parts of the bumper. But then, tragedy struck.
The bumper fell down. There's a couple of scratches here. Also, yeah.
Because of the weird way I was trying to position the bumpers, I was trying to have them sit like how they are on the car, so I could hold the spray gun upright, and apparently they wouldn't just sit there, so the front one fell and did some damage to itself, and even bigger emotional damage to me. I planned to be finished that day, and this did throw a wrench into my plans. But I decided to be stubborn, lock the fuck in, and still finish it on that day.
That is bullshit lazy, still my heart is blazing. If the words kill me, I don't need a new one under you. Soon you will know, we already know the smell of the
and by the evening everything was ready for paint, the bumpers now a lot more securely fastened. But how did the paint turn out, you may be wondering? Pretty good actually. I added an exhaust fan to my setup, which I think helped, but it also made a negative pressure inside, so I'll probably need to add an intake as well. I also added a bit more thinner to the paint this time, and so the orange peel was way less intense. There were some minor runs and some areas with not enough coverage, and I'm just going to blame those on the awkward position of the bumpers. But I'm very pleased with the final result, and when everything was installed back on the car, it made for a real glow up. Don't worry though, the black plastic parts will be done later. For now, I'd like to turn your attention to the wheels. Originally, the car came with some rusted and bent steelies with some hideous hubcaps, which I took off immediately. Later on, I got those BBS Bugattis like I mentioned before, but those weren't the wheels I originally intended to buy. No, I was always dreaming about something Japanese, some 8-spoke Watanabes to be precise. However, those are unfortunately out of my budget, and I know that Japan Racing makes a replica, but those would need some extreme fender pulling or fender flares, neither of which I wanted to do. But there is also another option. If you're not in the Twangy scene, you might not know that Intra once made some OEM Renault wheels that kinda resemble Watanabes. And they come in a couple different specs, and one of those is, I think, almost perfect for a Twingo. Though these are unobtainium where I'm from, but I did manage to find someone selling them in Germany who was willing to ship them. Turns out, when you ship a package this big through different countries and it gets handled by a few different couriers, there is a high chance of a kerfuffle. And apparently at least one happened in the process, as it somehow took 3 weeks for the wheels to get here. But at least they're finally here. I installed my previous tires and put them on the car. And I think the blue already looks way better with them on, but wait, there's a little something else I also wanted to add to do something about the pesky fender gap.
1 Crocs of fitment. I've got a set of coilovers. Only the best for the blue money shot. Ooh, individual boxes. Are we not posh, huh? Alright. It would be nice if it would say how much the spring rate is, but that's probably the trade secret, so...
Actually, you can see it online.
Huh?
Yeah,
Really?
you can see it.
Oh, okay.
For specific springs, you need to check the...
You think
You need to check the code on the spring, and then you can check how much kilo it is.
Alrighty. That's some proper torque. Coilover removal time. We will remove the coilover for good. It'll never go back in the car ever. Until I decide that the fucking coilovers are too
Stiff.
Too stiff, and I put the original suspension back in. Alright. There we go. Oops. How do we know how much the setting needs to be? We just fucking send it and then...
As low as it goes for default, I mean for always, and then that's it.
Oh, but this is just a safety one.
No.
Just a safety.
No.
I mean, if the wheels fit the fenders, I'm not complaining.
And your oil pan will fit the road.
If I don't mention this here, I will probably do it in the voiceover. TA Technics is like notoriously known in Europe as the cheapest coilovers you can get, but they also have TÜV certification. So like everyone who just wants to lower the shit out of their car is usually gonna go for those. But the other thing they are known for, besides being very cheap, is being very stiff. So like, I guess we'll see about that, but I think like for the price they're like 250 something, or like between 200 and 250. They're not that bad built, I think.
Because on mine I had to cut it like 3 coils.
We're not cutting coils. I'm telling you right now, that's the level of jank we're stopping at.
Let me find the angle grinder and then...
No.
Come on, Duga sim.
Yeah, but that's not the way of the Jedi. Hold my aim.
Okay.
Right out of the box, we set the coilovers to the lowest setting just to see what the maximum potential was. And I'm just gonna let our reactions speak for themselves.
Drop it.
Is it touching?
No, I think we.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
No, but I think we cannot remove the.
Yeah, we can.
No, the wheel. Okay.
Dude, the fitment is actually fucking perfect. Yeah, what the fuck? Why is the front so high?
So yeah, the rear was nice and slammed, but the front was still way too high. And beside the fenders rubbing, there were also clearance issues on the inner side.
And this is with full droop. I'm guessing when it gets lower, it starts to rub on the coil.
So I raised the rear and took the front coilovers out in order to do some experimenting. I have some extra springs from when I was doing some suspension tuning on Monica, and one set looked to be the right length, though it came with a drawback.
These are obviously gonna be super stiff because these are 18 kilogram, and I would guess that these are about 7, so it's gonna be super stiff.
I put the new setup on the car, and after some adjustments, I got an alright result. As I had to raise the rear to match the front, that solved the clearance issues outside and inside. However, even though the car had some really stiff springs, it still felt stiffer than it should be.
I'm worried that the car, when it's lowered already on this, which isn't even the lowest setting, is already hitting the bump stop, because you can see like when you're like, we're simulating now the car standing on the ground. Here the spring is already touching, you know, and there is a little bit of play still where we can squeeze it a little bit, but I am worried that it's already on the bump stop. So, because if it is, there is nothing we can do. Maybe get lower bump stops, but...
So we once again took the coilover out, took the spring out and measured its position on ride height. And we learned some not very exciting news.
It maxes out on the bump stop, yeah. We don't have any spring action, it's only bump stops.
We ended up finding some old bump stops which we shortened and made to fit. That, however, meant that we are already at a limit on how low the car will be able to get.
75 ride height.
That's it.
Oh, we're good. We could actually go lower maybe a centimeter. Yeah, but we're risking it. Now it's at least not gonna be on bump stop, it's gonna ride properly. Yeah, it's gonna be properly-ish. But it sucks that it can't go lower. I mean, okay, yeah. There's always a way. How ghetto you're willing to go.
How low you want to go.
Yeah.
To mind that it's ancient Ryobi.
It's not that bad actually. It's not that bad. It kind of feels race car-y now, like not too stiff, but like stiff.
Unfortunately, the car is going to have to stay like this for now, and while it does look good, it could look a lot better. I even asked Leo to bring a fender roller so we could roll the rear fenders and get some additional centimeters, but that will have to wait until I figure out some custom setup in the front. Now with the more mechanical stuff taken care of, I also want to give some attention to the state of the paint. When I painted the doors and the hood, the end result ended up having a texture. This is called orange peel, because it resembles the skin of an orange. This is not that big of a deal because it can be fixed. And you do that by wet sanding the paint with very high grit sandpapers until you're left with a smooth finish. You then polish it to give it back the shine, and then you're left with a professional finish. One step I like to do before is getting rid of any deep dirt in the paint with a clay bar, which is basically a Play-Doh-like substance that is usually used for prepping the car for sanding or polishing. I also got rid of that non-original 16-valve badge that has been bothering me ever since I've had the car. Then I also tried to rejuvenate some black plastics with a special restorer/coating I have, and that worked for some parts, for others I used the heat gun. I'm not a fan of painting these because if you don't use primer, any paint will have trouble sticking to plastic and it just half peels off in a couple of years. But if you do use primer, you lose the original texture which the plastic has. However, that is just my preference and there are probably some other methods I haven't heard about. But with that, most of the bigger things have already been done and I'm kind of proud to see how far he's come since I've got him. But don't worry, this guy is still very much a project, there are plenty of little details that need to be taken care of, as well as new stuff is always popping up, so there will probably never be a shortage of Twingo shenanigans going forward. Since the blue has now reached a new level of doneness and the channel got a slight visual makeover, I wanted to celebrate by having new stickers made. The first one is a Monica kiss cut and the second is my first attempt at a slap sticker. Both of these, as well as all the previous ones, are available from the link in the description. In any case, the blue is now ready to attend the meeting. Since this was apparently the first meeting of the community, there weren't that many cars present. There was 7 Twongies and almost each one in its own color. It was pretty fun sharing stories, talking about these marvels of French engineering, and the blue looked pretty happy to be surrounded by his brethren. Though the effort I put into him was overshadowed by a fully modified F4R swapped black Twingo, which was built to show car specs. I don't necessarily agree with some of the stylistic choices, but I have nothing but respect for the owner who put such massive effort into his Twingo. And it makes me happy to know I'm not the only one putting so much work into my almost 20-year-old French nugget. That's going to be all for now. Like I said, the blue has reached some kind of checkpoint and will probably stay like this for the next little while, and I'll revisit him later on when I'm done with some other projects. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and like always I wish you a great rest of your day.